looking for a co-founder, you have to be very intentional. It's like you're looking for a marriage partner. Co-founder is not just a fancy word. It's actually someone that's supposed to have a skill that you don't have.
A lot of times we're too kind here. Like, I don't think we ever really got a no from a Zambian. They just kind of disappear on you. And sometimes you're just like, just tell me no.
One thing I noticed about Africa, I've traveled and I've lived in quite a number of African countries. We all have the same problems. So the problem that actually Zambia has is not only a Zambian problem, it's an African problem.
Every time I read about bootstrapping from especially American literature and whatnot, you hear these entrepreneurs that come up and say, you know, I only had like 30K savings and so I started bootstrapping. Then I'm like, what?
That's everything here.
Then I'm like, if that's bootstrapping, we don't bootstrap in Africa. We are barefooting.
Exactly that weekend. Dude, you're in charge now. Let me move over. Monday, I just get a message say this guy had an accident. This abdomen splits open. I've never cried for anybody in my life, a relative, the way I cried for that guy.
But then I knew one thing I'll never do is if anything happens, a death or something, I need to make sure that we find a way of making sure the company still functions, runs, and find other ways of showing that you're mourning with them, just be there for them, offer financial help if you're able to, all that stuff.
One time like this, make it pop like this, make it knock like. One time like this, make it pop like this, knock like this, make it drop. One time
Welcome
like
back
this.
to Mentorship Uncomplicated, part 2 of this episode, season finale of season 2.
Thank you.
Yeah, here with my friends, my boys, mad people, co-founders, crazy people. We're just discussing about something during the break about how you handle a death in a business, especially a startup. Don't forget that when you're running a startup, everything that you're going through, you're going through it for the first time. A few of us here have gone through that. So where you've lost either a colleague, a worker, or relative, yeah, just
Brother.
someone important that affects the business. I know for a fact that for Gilbert it affected his business to the point where he had shut down. For me it was.
What happened with you?
So I've experienced this multiple times because I was in what we call a high risk business. So you drivers, riders get into accidents. Some of them die. And some of these guys. So my retention when it comes to my drivers is very high. So they've been there for years. So they become family. Yeah. It's not just where this guy just today comes in, does a few rides and goes. But then how do you handle this as a leader? Because first of all, don't forget that your people are really looking at how you're going to behave. Okay? So when this happens, the first time it happened actually, for us, the rider that died was called Gilbert. Oof.
Ooh, do it.
Yeah, the rider that died was called Gilbert. And what happened is this guy, his shift was done. It was over. And he...
Motorcycle rider.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, because he was on probation, he said, I really want to impress the boss. I was in Nairobi at that time. I was flying to Nairobi that day. So I really want to impress the boss. So let me just pick up 2 extra orders. And the guys at the office told him, no, you don't have to. Just go home. The other rider is going to pick up the shift. So even when he died, that wasn't his shift.
Wow.
Yeah, so I get home. And even the way they broke the news to me was quite stupid. They were like, Gilbert has died. I'm like, what? Yeah, so apparently this guy was hit by a truck. And it was so bad because he jumped and it ran over his face. Like his face just didn't exist.
Man.
And you know what I did?
And you were in Nairobi.
I was in Nairobi, so I was from the airport now going to my house. And I said the next day, we're not going to open the office. We're not going to work. And let me tell you something. This is where I understood actually, first of all, mentorship matters. And I understood that there is always someone above you that can advise you on how to handle stuff. Because when I told, back then we used to have a partner / investors that had a bit of experience running big companies, and he told me shutting down the company for a day was a mistake.
Yeah.
So I felt like that. Well, a small team were like 5 or so, and I felt like it had affected people so personally that they were not going to be able to work. But also now I I was put in a position where how do I show up as a leader, but how do I also try and experience what these guys are experiencing at the same time?
Because you're away.
Exactly.
And this is happening in Zambia.
Yeah. But then I knew one thing I'll never do is if anything happens, a death or something, I need to make sure that we find a way of making sure the company still functions, runs, and find other ways of showing that you're mourning with them, just be there for them, offer financial help if you're able to, all that stuff. Gilbert, yours is a different story. Who else has experienced that?
Mine's different, but Gilbert, go ahead. Go with yours. Because Gilbert, I think, tell us what happened to your business, I think.
Yeah, Gilbert, keep it short, please.
Yeah. I think for me, I like what Wallace mentioned concerning it being a startup, right? Because, if you have 100 employees and one dies, yes, it's a sad thing, but there's 99 remaining to get the work done. So for me, just like, again, Wallace, the guy worked with me for about 5 years straight, and that was how odd the business was as well. And I took this guy from, knowing, just being a high school graduate to literally being able to run the business from top to bottom. And at that moment, I think just that weekend, just Friday, his name is Daniel. Funny enough, his name was Daniel Mwale. I mean, just very likable guy. I mean, had good relations with a lot of people, our partners like Zippos and all. So the idea was that on Friday, we had just promoted him to being, by that time in my mind, I had just finished building another system, the payment system and stuff like that. So in my mind, I was like, okay, great. This guy has learned the business. I'm going to give him now to run the e-commerce. I shift over and go and raise money for operations to run the payment system, the aggregation system. Exactly that weekend, dude, you're in charge now. Let me move over. Monday, I just get a message say this guy had a that side of near the stadium, Great North Road. Yeah, guy had an accident because he used to have a motorbike for the company that he was using for his movement. Coming in the morning, there's a tipper truck coming, no indicators. The guy decides he wants to overtake it on the right. It turns to the same right to go off the road. He hits right inside there. This abdomen splits open. And then, but the young man was so fit, like the Bosso CEO there. The young man was so fit that actually stayed alive for the next 3 hours. The challenge was where he was, the hospital where he was. They were failing to contain the bleeding so they can push him over to UTH. So he was even talking actually to people. Yeah, but cut a story short, why that hit me so hard was that, and I say this, and I know people are watching right now, and it's probably a sad thing to say, but I've never cried for anybody in my life, a relative, the way I cried for that guy. Yeah, right. It pained me, and I must also admit it here. I think I've said it to my wife once in a while. I feel, to a certain degree, I experienced some level of mental pressure because of that death.
Yeah. How did it affect the business, though?
Took us down all the way because that guy was the engine of sales. He was a literal engine for sales. He understood exactly when a client calls in, he knows how to respond to exactly the source of the product and how to give the pricing and how to calculate he was the system. He was the only second guy who knew how to receive a request of a client, calculate the price. You understand? Calculate the price of both the product and as well as also the delivery, because at that time we were still trying to struggle with pricing. So he could do all that stuff. Cut the story short, the guy dies. Next thing I turn to the rest of my team and I go like, guys, who's taking it up? I put in guys month on month, 0 sales.
Yeah.
4-5 months straight.
0
sales. Until we finally knew down November. Because he died off, I think he died probably about April, May there. So from that point on, 1 to 2 sales for the next 2 months. For the next month until November. And that was about it. And how did we deal with it? We became helpful to the family. We paid for some of the activities.
Nobody talks about the burden.
Because death is a big thing in Africa. Funerals are huge. It's not small business.
And and your company is supposed to participate, cover costs.
Exactly, yeah.
And yourself?
Mine was different. I'll be brief on it, but mine was hugely impactful. My younger brother passed away, and that was tough. And
You mean the one who was doing the movies?
No. So my older brother is the one who was doing the movies with me. But my younger brother, 41, passed away, and such a great year for Bosso, which was really like two really awful things because I didn't want to leave. Right, we were just raising money. We had just talked to investors. We were like, I was pumped to be here, and then he passes away, and I was like, I gotta leave my business in order to. I gotta walk away and then fly back to America to go to my brother's funeral. Didn't want to do any of that. Like it was just I was really pissed at him. Really, you know what I mean? You're like, this just hurts and stuff. So because I love working, right? If you know me, you know. Seppo says nobody's gonna outwork me. I outwork him all the time. But it's one of those things that I don't want to leave work. This is what I do. This is what I do well. And now I gotta go do this. And this is hugely emotional. And he's my younger brother. So it was like an awful time. So how you deal with it is exactly that. We don't have systems. We have a great leadership team. Yeah. So I knew that the company was gonna be fine. Yeah. Right? I knew that leaving Ivan, Miko, Chisepo, the company will be fine. I just didn't want to leave. Yeah. Right, and I think that's how you survive. In Gilbert's situation, exactly. Yeah. I never feared that the company would tank if I wasn't there. Yeah. But that was it. And then even when I was away, I still poured myself into work. So that's really what I do, just selfish wise.
You know, as you guys talk, we are lucky that we're talking about. We're not really lucky, but we're talking about other people other than the founders. But don't forget that could happen to either one of us. Yeah. Do we have, and also two things, do we have things in place to take care of such things? Number two, and this is the most important part, do we talk about it? Are we comfortable talking about it? I remember my lawyer used to jokingly say, you need to put your stuff in order. You need to put your stuff in order. Yeah. And I always used to feel weird, like I'm immortal or something. But are we actually having these discussions? Because anything could happen. You could just get hit by a bus or a motorbike.
I guess that's why people even fear the conversation of life insurance, you know?
Yeah, life insurance. But it's going to happen. So I think it's something that we should normalize.
And I would say that in Bosso, I think we have. Just because I would say I might be pushing it because it's one of those things that, so we sat down with a life insurance company. We're doing all of that paperwork now. Now, it's expensive. It's going to cost us like $15,000 a month. So it's tough because you have to take it, but it covers all four of us as founders. It makes sure that the family's whole and that the company's not burdened. Yeah. Right? For me to come out of pocket, if something happens to me, for the rest of Bosso to come out of pocket in order to give up my salary and pay people and then do all that, right? They gratuity at 25% of my salary, right? So that will be a burden to the company. So you've got to find a way to off-put that, or you're in real trouble if something happens to a founder.
All right, another question. So I'll do a complete shift.
Sure, please.
What's the most unique challenge? So I'll localize this question. What's the most unique challenge you've faced starting and running a business in Zambia? In very short sentences. Should I nominate someone? Muyunda?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most challenging things when starting a business, for example, in Zambia, is I felt like skill set. It also depends which space you're in, but now I think I'm talking about like maybe in the tech space, but I think it goes either ways. Skill set is one of the biggest challenges because we have an education system that just doesn't prepare people to have the skill set needed for them to win in the actual work.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So I think that's number one. Of course, finance, but I feel like finance should be the last thing in the equation. Yeah, finance is there, but it should be the last thing. Once you have a proper team, proper skill set, then you should have finance to basically scale. You shouldn't have finance to start. Finance to scale. So skill set for me, I think it's the biggest challenge.
When you say skill set, what do you mean? Are you talking about?
Skill set is that talent. You get it. talented people, finding people that are very good at what they do. Yeah, for me, that's I think.
Do you think those people are in like
those
large?
people are actually large organizations? You get it? You know.
So we are really competing with
Yes,
the
exactly.
large.
You know, and you're just starting. You don't have the money to pay this guy.
So for
You
me,
know?
I think to add to that would be the financing bit, because then you don't have the money to compete, you know.
But also
for
just
the
convince
best
how
talent.
how do you convince someone that what you're doing is actually a winning project? Because 90% of startups fail. So you have so you have to have like a I don't know.
Chicken egg problem.
Yeah. So I think for me, talent is
But
number one.
But I
Let
think
them
if
just-
you had the money, like Chalo is mentioning, I think you would be able to actually keep a certain good talent, because I think there's a huge turnover in startups because it's more like a training ground for people.
But who is going to give you the money when you're starting? No one is going.
There's yeah, he's got a point there, because I'm trying to figure out how hard has it been for you guys to convince people that your idea will work.
So I think yes, there's going to be a good number of people that will say no, but I think I like to look at it using an analogy that I usually teach, where there's going to always be black beans. So you get brown beans and white beans and black beans, maybe a few handful of black beans and a bucket full of white beans. Put the black beans in the bucket full of white beans and mix them. You know the black beans is in there, but when you look, can you see the black beans? No, you won't. It's filled. So you just have to keep searching and keep searching. Eventually, you probably tap on a black bean. I probably spoke with maybe.
You're talking about founders, right? Finding
yes,
founders.
founders.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think when you start from there, then the trickle down becomes easier. So for me to get IBIN as an example, Miko was the easiest because we worked at Zippos together. Yeah, but to get IBIN,
So you took your other co-founder from there too. What did you leave?
and that's why now that's why they've got clauses in my current contract where I can't just take co-founders and walk away. 'Cause
yeah.
they think I'll just go and start another startup.
Let's leave.
So I spoke with a number of people to get IBIN. I spoke with a number of people to get Sal. So I've always known that I have to like search. It won't come easy. But then once you get the initial people and you the next thing is trust. You have to build trust. Because even I think the most recent interviews we're doing, where we're trying to hire developers, I can tell it's a trust game. These are people that I first hired in 2011, and they're coming now to join a very different startup from that time. Yeah. Had I shit them that time, had I double-crossed them that time, they were never going to show up now. So it's a trust game, and people are able to see what the track record is. That's why traction is everything. And traction not just on your sales, but even on you as an individual, your personality. What is your track record? And on Sunday, I had a great conversation with a friend of mine who I first hired in 2011 for a failed startup. So even when that startup was failing, did I maintain the friendship? What was the exit like? Such that I can now come back to her or to them when they are now in positions of power. Exactly.
I like to agree with that because, I mean, if I think about the number of people that have passed by Emsika, I must say close to about 30 to 40 people have worked at Emsika at one given point in time. And
That's a low number. I've had like 200, 300.
You
Wow.
know, you know, like, and then for me, though, you're talking about tech people, devs. And I think maybe about out of that 40 to 30, you're talking about 20 devs.
That's a lot, eh?
Yeah, 20 to 25 devs.
Devs, that's a lot.
Yeah, and the number of
like doctors.
we're talking about developers right now. So, and a number of them are at top places. You know, MTN, Airtel, Zamtel, banks, and stuff like that. So exactly what Chisepo is saying. You know, as you keep that traction of, you know, you keeping a good relationship with people, and you know, you're not double crossing them. There's a rule I set out to. I worked at a very weird company when I finished my university. Well, I didn't finish. I was actually still in university final year. I went to do internship. You know, we had to, like, when it's time for month end, like it's 30th, you had to sit and wait for the guy, the boss. You can see the guy's office right there, and you're hoping he's gonna pay you. but you worked.
Hoping
You're gonna pay, and you know he has got money. Like it's not like you're thinking that did we make money or not. No, you knew we made a lot of money, but you had to go like pure man, like this guy, and you start having conversation. Is he gonna pay us today? No, 31. Is he gonna pay us today? And then you have to go and beg him, bruh. Are we getting our money? Okay, I'll send it, and then he sends. So I told myself, I'm never gonna be that
I
guy.
hope you're not that boss.
Do you understand that? So I told myself, I'm never going to be that guy. Even when I don't have much, I'm going to be very clear and honest to my people. So when these guys were coming in, I'll be telling them, guys, this is what I can do. And suddenly, the relationships are crazy. Because now when you're calling on those relationships, like Chisepo is saying, man, I have it easy when it comes to getting things done in the tech space. And I've always told Chisepo over this because we have conversations over this. I've never had a problem hiring devs because I make them and then I help them and then I release them.
I think just to also just talk about tech. I like, how do you handle two talented, founders? Like you come in, both of you are talented. There's always like some form of friction when you're starting.
Ego.
I don't know if there's anyone that has had that. Like, when you're starting, because I remember me and my co-founder, we went on for close to like 2 years back and forth until the third year. That's when now things like, because we are both talented and I don't know, maybe just
It's like a marriage, eh? It's a relationship.
It's like a relationship. Yeah,
It's actually probably stronger than a marriage. I don't know. Sorry.
But who someone here mentioned something about value, like people bringing values. I don't know how it was said, but how I understood it was people recognizing that this is what this one brings, or maybe
I think also, I think that's a point. So I've got one co-founder.
Yeah.
The most important co-founder. And Jens and I will probably, we are very different, but we're also very alike. Very, very different. But we're also somehow alike. I like when it comes to alignment. I like when it comes to thought process. I like when it comes to the end game. Okay? Which is very, very important. So I think also founders, I was having a conversation with someone. They were like, "Oh, I'm looking for a co-founder. Help me look for one." But I think looking for a co-founder, you have to be very intentional. It's like you're looking for a marriage partner.
Yeah.
Co-founder is not just a fancy word. It's actually someone that's supposed to have a skill that you don't have. Okay, that's why when you look at Bosso, that's probably the ultimate. That's the ultimate. And I look at distribution.
We have to
I have
say
to
that.
give Chisepo credit for one specific thing, just one, nothing else.
I think I may have more for you guys.
Just one.
Yeah,
Just one. And this is it.
enough. One is enough.
When it comes to distribution of tasks, he has managed to somehow have the co-founders actually do what they're supposed to be doing. Let me just, because I do business with these guys. I have had tech meetings. Chisepo is not there. Miko is the one that's attending them. When I'm talking money, Sal is the one attending them. When I'm talking ops, it's Ibin that's attending them. And I don't know what Chisepo is for, actually. Chisepo just vibes.
Your job
But
is
don't
on the line.
forget your story. It's just a comment on what you've just said. I remember two weeks ago, we're in the office. And I'm like, guys, I'm worried. I've only got like a month before I leave because I'll be away for about 6 months. I've only got about...
Oh, you're traveling for 6 months?
Yeah, I'll be out because I'll be in the US
and
then back in December. I'll be away for a while. I only have a few weeks. We need to put things in place because I don't know how I'm going to handle things when I'm not here and you guys remain alone. Then this girl, one of the girls in the office, looks at me and says, "Sepo, can you just go because there's no work you do here? Just leave already." We have
there's nothing, and I really
That's the most important part, and that is connecting the dots.
I really admired that. And Jens and I have had this friction. So Jens will wake up one day and send me some very low level message to do with operations. And I'm like, my guy, you have left a CTO role up there
to come.
and you have come down to ask about why is this security guard behaving like this? And I think that's some of the weaknesses we have as co-founders or founders. First of all, you need to let go of some of these roles, okay? And you need to learn how to delegate and perform at a very, very high level. And then you also need to find a way of matching yourself with the best co-founders you can find. These are things you have to pray for. These are not things that these are
there's
not
no-
things that
there's
just
no-
come.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what are we talking about? Alignment.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to co-founders and alignment, I think if you want to learn something, the only thing this guy can teach you is that. I don't know who looked for them, but I really, really admire that setup. I'm like, even if everything below
Lightning
that
in a
is shit.
bottle. I think it was lightning in the bottle
I,
for us.
I need to give you guys the flowers. He's right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm like, that's like a top tier thing.
I read once that some of the best entrepreneurs internationally, when you look at how they've built their businesses, you find that the only thing they've been doing all along is just collecting people into their network. And that's people at all levels, employees, partners, investors. Like as an entrepreneur, that's like your number one goal, people, and you're bringing them into the network. If you can find the best talent, nothing will stop you.
So we're all in tech startups, I might say, technology companies. What do you think is stopping Zambia from being a tech hub, other than load shedding, of course? But what do you feel like is stopping us from being where talent is sourced from or created?
It's us.
Okay, tell me more.
It's us. A lot of entrepreneurship come down to you, whether or not you've got what it takes to do it, right? We need, I would say two things. One, it's really you, the entrepreneur. You've got to have the experience. You have to have the attitude, and you've got to be tough. So eat, right? Eat. That's what I always say. Experience. You've got to be able to see the red cars, right? The opportunities around. If you can't take advantage of those opportunities, you're not going to be a good entrepreneur. And then you've got to have the right attitude. You've got to be serious about raising money. You've got to be serious about what you do. And what I mean by serious, I'll just pick on, let's talk about drinking, right? People have trouble raising money, right? Imagine, and they always complain, my family, my friends, my colleagues, they all don't give me money at the beginning, right? I think one of the reasons why that happens is if I've got to carry you home because you were drunk last month, and this month you come to me with a great idea, how am I supposed to take you serious?
Forget it.
And that first group of money is the one that's going to start your company.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the right attitude, if you're not looked at in your group of friends as a leader, nobody's going to give you the money you need to start your company. And that's a huge problem. The only people who might do it are your mom and your dad. All right? Just because.
Even them would doubt.
And even them, they're going to doubt. And you're going to lose their money. So that's it. So the attitude, and then you just got to have the toughness. Right? A lot of times we're too kind here. Like, I don't think we ever really got a no from a Zambian. They just kind of disappear on you. And sometimes you're just like, just tell me no. And let me move on. And that's really what we do really well. I'm a numbers guy, so I just throw a few numbers. We went through about 35. This was really Chisepo. Chisepo went through about 35 contacts. We got 8 of them as investors. Right? That was the seed. That was not the seed. Sorry, that was the very first group.
That's good conversion.
That was like
I'm like 35 to 8.
It's almost 50%.
So that was our first $53,000. Right? Came from those 35 conversations. Giuseppe really built an what's called a CRM and everything, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later. But he built a system before I got there that I literally plugged into and was like, oh, this is phenomenal. Talked to 35 people, got 8 checks. The next group was 40. Right, so like the micro foundations and things like that. That next group, 40, got 3. That's Launch, Renew, and Vinci, right? And then there's like the programs group, right? The YCs, all of those like big places. 20 applications. Yeah. 1 we got into. That's it, right? And that was Vinci. That was Vinci. So that was it. So you're talking over 79 people we just reached.
No, in total it was 100 and just under 110, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about 79 that we actually pitched. Not just that we sent shit out to, but people who you pitched, you got all the way to a good conversation. And I would say we did convert well. Like we got
that's a very good conversion, yeah.
One time like this, make it pop like this. Knock like this, make it drop. One time like this, make it pop like this.
Who here is raising money?
No.
I think we were.
How much are you raising?
300K.
And you? Yeah.
2.5.
And you?
150.
And you?
500.
Okay, so clearly you guys are raising big money.
What are you
Almost
raising?
$1 million. Do you need the money?
Need. That's an interesting question.
Do you need the money or do you want the money?
I believe we need it. And I think
And hey,
I've become
first
so
of all,
around that.
for the audience, this is not kwacha, yeah?
Oh yeah, so
This is
yeah.
dollars.
Just in case.
This is dollars and pounds and euros.
Yeah, and I think the way we floated it out just felt,
Like without flinching.
not
You
checking.
you see him say 2.5 million without even flinching. He's not
Yeah.
even blinking like.
Do you
I believe we need it. And that is why we kind of like came, because initially we would float them around anyhow. We kind of came down for the purpose that we have understood now that we have done our tests. We've run bootstrapped by ourselves from pivoting,
Yeah.
and we have confirmed that the solution works. So we now are asking ourselves to say, now how would this look like in the event it was in everybody's face? And what that looks like is marketing. So the tech is pretty good. It's sitting on solid ground. It can actually scale. So now the question is, how do we just get into everybody's face? So that is where we're looking at.
I think that's also like a very I think that's a very important thing that we've talked about, bootstrapping, because many people feel like when you're starting, the check did you get a check when you started? How was it? I think you should just
no, we didn't have a check. In fact, what happened is this. Remember we crashed, right? 2022 November. I started out the year with $30,000. I ended the year on November 30th with 7,000 kwacha.
Hey.
Yeah.
Were you just burning cash?
Sorry?
Were you making revenue or just burning
No,
cash?
remember I said 5 months, 7 months.
Zero.
Yeah.
And you kept your staff.
I don't want to get into that. I kept them. There was something crazy. Chinedu is my mentor for that long. There was something crazy going on with two of my employees. And I was like, man, I gotta let those guys go, or this thing will bend to the ground. I went to sit down with him, like, dude, take a look at this. He went like, man, sometimes you gotta take a bullet.
Yeah.
So I just went like, great.
Bite the bullet.
We went all the way. I went down with the ship until I reached the end. I went like, guys, nothing else to pay you guys. Sorry, everybody gotta go. And that's how we went from 18 employees to 2 employees.
Did you feel some sort of relief?
Hey, somehow. I was like,
I remember
"Gosh."
the day I decided to cut off like over 70% of our business, the previous one.
Yeah.
Like I was crying at first.
Real tears?
Neutral, yeah. Like
My guy, I was, the day,
In the fetal. In the
this is
fetal
funny.
position.
The day I made the decision, I was actually in Finland, and it was freezing cold. And I had gotten some. It was freezing cold, and I had gotten some reports from the person that was managing operations and another one from finance. So I took a walk, and I'm just crying in the cold. And then immediately I came back.
It was like a breakup.
It was just like, let's shut it down.
Wow.
Immediately, I just decided that I could feel this peace flow from. I just feel like a
Shut
huge
it down.
burden has just been lifted from you. It's
You know what's crazy is I literally remember seeing him in Finland posting pictures.
and
you're happy. And I was actually really motivated, but you never really see what
you
pain
never.
people are going through.
Yeah.
And-
And I think that's been the inside of like hang around people like you guys. Like when I see you guys post stuff and all those things, I go like, I know that guy, and
I know what's going on.
What's happening behind?
yeah.
You are thinking he just raised $1 million or whatever it is. I know the crazy stuff he's been through right now to get that thing. You understand?
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
and I think that's why Wallace mentioned to say that the reason why this podcast is kind of like to bring out this factor that, while you are seeing somebody celebrate and do all these amazing things, there is the real stuff behind it. You know what I'm talking about? I want to quickly rush back to a question you asked Wallace concerning,
Do you need it or do you want it?
the tech part.
Okay.
Like why we're not the tech hub. I think we are churning out a good number of tech devs, like people who know the stuff. And but
is that as Emsika or as you from
No,
your part-time lecturing?
because I lecture at the university.
okay.
Yeah, so I lecture devs actually. In fact, that's the only course I teach now to build apps. Now, I think people are coming out from all the other universities. I think what is happening is that a majority of us that are thinking of starting businesses, we are thinking of it from the angle of, we create a solution ourselves, and then we want employees in there as devs. But there's very few of us who are thinking of the Andela, the Andela style of businesses. Because we are cheap labor on this side of the world for people in other parts of the world.
Yeah,
so I know these guys are. There's what are they called? Harvest has got an arm which builds the Zig. Yes. So if we had a lot more like the Zig kind of structure, we would then see that outcome. But the ability to bring in, like the problem he mentioned, Muyunda, to say how to bring in people who are sharp, a group of people who I've seen very difficult to control. It's devs as well as also graphic designers, because they feel they can do 15 jobs at the same time. Now, it's that coordination that for me I feel is a problem.
Yeah. How to make them focus.
Do we need it? Do we want it? Yeah? You don't want to answer that question.
We delegate. That's Miko.
No, but he asked the question saying, do we need
Do you need the money or do you want it?
Oh, do we need the money? Do we want it?
And before he even answers that, Gilbert, you owe me a gig at your university. I want to talk to your students.
I told him the same thing, yeah.
Why are you holding us back?
What's going on, man? I'm sure we can inspire one or two people.
I've been begging you guys, somebody come in.
I don't remember that. I'm calling you out on air.
All right, great. I have you guys hooked up. School is opening, I think, in the this particular week itself. So before it gets too hot, I hope you guys have got an open schedule. You come
get us before we fly out.
Yeah,
exactly.
We leave. Yeah. Do we need the money or do we want it?
Need the money.
For us, it's a need, and it's because we're growing at such a fast pace. For us, it's a need. We have to. We've got to get it. The problem we're solving is so pressing. And, I would say we only complete 80% of all of the orders we get. So 20% of the orders we just can't complete, just because we don't have the resources. People need other things. So for us, it's a massive need. And even after that, as soon as we get to 2.5, we're going to need more than that, because then we're going to scale into a different type of market. And we're not even talking about, you're talking housing crisis. We're doing it for the people who can afford to do it. There are a whole bunch of people who can't afford it. Where do they live? They deserve decent housing. You're talking 15 million, 20 million, $100 million to solve that problem, and we're nowhere near it.
I have a follow-up question, and this applies personally to my business. I was having a conversation with a friend, and we started talking about how sometimes you can be late. You can be too late for you to raise money. So I bootstrapped my business for quite some time, and the reason why I never raised money is two reasons. I keep telling people two reasons. Number one, I didn't know how to raise money. So most of this startup culture, I just came to experience it later through these guys. But number two is because I wasn't going to raise money for a food delivery company. Okay, so our food delivery wasn't it. So what we were trying to build was an Amazon. But if you look at Amazon, e-commerce is just one part of the business, which is what I had with our food delivery. But then for the whole group to make sense, there has to be fulfillment, there has to be delivery, which is logistics, and there has to be e-commerce, payments, all this other stuff. Okay, this took me 10 years to figure out. Okay, yeah, if you go to my LinkedIn, it says that I started working on Afri delivery 9 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Okay, thank God we made money, so we were self-sustainable. So this is when I'm doing my first raise. Okay.
Congrats.
Nice one.
Congrats, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is when I'm doing my first raise.
You should actually show that placard.
Yeah, I was
No,
about to.
I'm going to show you guys my placard.
No, we didn't bootstrap at all, which is crazy.
What?
We didn't bootstrap at all.
No, you
when
didn't.
I came to the company, I had a salary.
Oh shit!
No, not really.
God damn!
No.
Was it in dollars?
I
I
came in
promised-
August.
Oh, you came when the salaries came in.
And then we got our large one in September.
Oh yeah. No, so when the company started, I promised these guys they would get paid within a month. And that was June. And then June no money. And then July. Then August. I was like, snap, Ibin is leaving. Because Ibin was crazy, man. He was Ibin's worked for some of the largest companies, Lafarge, what's Verino. Yeah. So then he was working for one of these large companies, and then he left. He told me, if you ever start the next startup from Zipos, let me know. I was like, I can't afford you. He's like, Sepo, you don't understand. It's not that. So I tried him, and when I did, he said, oh, give me a month, I'll quit. So, and he quit July. In fact, he quit in June.
The responsibility.
Yeah. And he quit in June, and July he came. And he was supposed to get a salary in August. But that went on. I think the biggest salary, September.
September, I cut the first payroll.
Okay, nice.
And then we never stopped. We've been cutting payroll since then.
So I have a funny concept, right? Because every time I read about bootstrapping from especially American literature and whatnot, you hear these entrepreneurs that come up and say, I only had like 30K savings, and so I started bootstrapping. Then I'm like, what? That's
everything here.
Then I'm like, if that's bootstrapping, we don't bootstrap in Africa. We are barefooting. Bootstrap.
I love that.
That is excellent.
Because
You had
we're
boots.
starting from you had boots to strap. We barefoot.
Nothing.
That's it.
You have
That's
nothing.
it.
So-
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watch
We barefoot.
Oh man, that's solid.
I'll go back to my question. I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
So it took me 10 years to get every single arm of my business working. So there's a group, and there's 3 companies under there. Afri Delivery is one of them. And then there's the storage part that Bosso is now using. And then there's...
Love it.
Shout out.
Yeah.
And then there's the... Emsika too is also using my storage. Shout out.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, look at you, the
Yeah.
Godfather.
The Godfather.
Hey, it's
It's an
advert.
advert. and we need a cut.
So when you pray at night,
Either
when you
it
pray at
goes-
night, pray
either-
for me.
Either it goes for to
Yeah.
the fees
Yeah.
or just a paycheck.
And then there's logistics, which
Africa.
all of us are using.
Yeah.
So that makes Afri online.
Nice.
Afri supermarket.
Then there's Afri Supermarket, you see e-commerce. So Afri Delivery, Afri Supermarket, e-commerce. There's the storage, Afri Storage, and then there's the logistics, Afri Courier. So now, it took me 10 years to figure all that shit out. 8 years now, because I started in 2015, 2016 there, and we're in 2024 now, going to 2025. So now it makes sense for me to go to an investor and say, oh, I've got a business that we can scale across Africa. But in my mind, I keep thinking, is it too late? Because I literally have a fully functional business. Free delivery is like an old OG business, runs as that. The others, I can call them startups. But then I never wanted to go to investors without value. But I also never wanted to dilute too soon, because I knew I would be given a shit valuation at some point. But then now I feel like it's the right time. But is it... What are you writing? I think it's taking notes. But then...
Is it too late?
Is it too late?
Yeah.
All right, I'm a finance guy.
Because you're talking about a business that has audited financials for at least maybe the last 3 or 4 years, something like that.
I'm a finance guy, so this is what. So what I did was I looked at investments and stuff like that in emerging markets and kind of gave it to my group. People are gonna they're gonna be nervous. Yeah. And and they're gonna be nervous because you should have scaled this before. So what? The great thing about the position you're in is the people who you can get money from is private equity. You have a business, and now you're just talking about, I just need more money to build that business, right? If you go to venture capital, who are guys who want immediate scale, they want a rocket ship scale, they're going to look at you and probably be more nervous and say, okay, yeah, we give you this money. Are you going to be in 10 countries? Are you going to be in 5 other countries in two or 3 years?
But why can't he? Because
No,
I mean, I'm like, fuck the rules. Why can't he do it?
Yeah.
I think that I agree with him. I wouldn't have just probably stated the actual name.
You
of the-
agree
of
with
the-
Sal?
Yeah, I agree with Sal
Okay.
because I think that there's at a place where you're at, right? You have to change the kind of vehicles you're going to be talking to, depending on their comfortability. For example, it never used to make sense to me early on when I was very tiny and I would go to Kenya.
When we
and
say
I'd preach.
vehicles, you're not talking about literal vehicles. You're talking about investment vehicles. Because these are the terms that we know, but the audience doesn't know.
So, he mentioned private equity, he mentioned venture capitalists and stuff like that. So those are the vehicles, debt financing and the likes. So I feel like when you like he mentioned private equity, when you go to debt financials and stuff like that, these guys will love you.
Yes.
Like they will be like, whoa, this is great. And you could actually manage to get financing that is with very
I was
little.
thinking the same actually.
Yeah, like with
Wait. So
very
is it
financing.
because? So what is VC is looking for fast growth?
It's
Why
not
can't he position himself as a fast growth?
great. That's a great question. But that's really Wallace. It's all about what you want to do, right? If what the money you take is going to define what you. If you want fast growth, so are you a gambler? Because you're
Yeah,
gonna.
man. I mean, I'm here.
But this is real gambling, right? They'll give you $3, $4, $5 million and take equity
And
and
that's
expect
exactly that was
you
my
to
thought
grow.
because I was gonna go like the 1 million actually right now for the place where you are also is a red flag. For where you are, you in the same vein,
Push.
you need to be looking at 3, 5, somewhere
So
around there.
my question to you, Wallace, would be, how are your energies 10 years later?
Yeah.
I think I'll be.
Because I feel like there's a certain, and I think you're the one that said this, that you want to win and you want to win fast as
And
a
yeah.
startup. You get what I mean?
It's who
but
you are.
you've been there for 10 years, How are your energies? Do you think you're at a place where you want to now push it and scale it fast? Like, I think that would also feed into where you get your money as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still younger than you guys.
Definitely younger than
but
me.
to speak to your point, I think I've been thinking very much about VCs and PE. And I feel like I'm actually more aligned with PE or debt financing. For example, so we scaled to Cape Town and we made money immediately. Okay? So I didn't have to start figuring shit out. So what we did is we did this maybe a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. And we're doing the same in Kinshasa, Congo, DRC. So what we noticed is that through that 10 years, we built such a crazy system and very tech-heavy company that any other startup or company coming up can utilize our tech and save their cost significantly. Okay?
It's a plug and play.
Exactly. So when we went to South Africa and partnered with for example, Quilly, that's the company that we partnered with, the guys, within a week or two, they had started implementing our tech, and that significantly started saving their time, their money. And for me, myself, I made money immediately because first of all, that GMV is going through me now, okay? And I'm getting a net of the GMV, you understand? So there was no cost implications for me to scale. I didn't have to start worrying, do I have to
That's a good business.
do all this? So for me, that's what I'm asking myself. Even if I raise money now, am I going to raise money just to go and source for all these small companies in all these other countries?
Yes, that's a startup. Because you have tech that can
because
scale fast.
what I've built is not actually an ecosystem. You understand? I'm an ecosystem enabler because what I have is
You're plumbing. You built the
exactly.
plumbing.
When you guys are scaling, you come to me, you're like, yo, we need logistics APIs or we need fulfillment APIs. But then there's there are very many other Bossos, Emsikas, Ebusakas in all these other countries, especially other than South Africa, outside South Africa, that don't have all this stuff. Because one thing I noticed about Africa, I've traveled and I've lived in quite a number of African countries. We all have the same problems. So the problem that actually Zambia has is not only a Zambian problem, it's an African problem. So I think I'm still I have to agree with both of these guys, when it comes to the kind of vehicle that I use, I highly agree, and that's why probably the PEs were more interested in me during the ICA.
I was shocked when I saw two PEs go to him,
your case,
and
huh?
one actually asked for me. I was like, why is a PE interested in this guy?
They came to the office.
Yeah,
and
they
we
never
agreed.
liked us.
And be clear, we got turned down flat. They were asking, EBITDA questions, where are you guys, where are you, like we're losing money. Completely.
Month on month.
And the numbers didn't so.
Let me say something funny though. Weirdly, the first model of our business, I was growing it like you guys. This second model of the business, which is farmhouse, I'm growing it like he's doing. Now I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just being clear there. I'm not saying it's the right way.
Choose your poison.
I love the sound of that because now I'm saying it because initially I was getting the type of financing. I remember I was doing this a lot with Chisepo. We're getting financing, from grant financing, family and friends, and grant financing and grant financing and grant financing. Then I went like, no, but when are the investors, the venture capital coming in, and they are not coming in? You understand? So I felt like, hey, like if I'm going to go through this way, in the right way, in the agri space, I may need to brace myself for a different kind of model. Are you seeing that? So therefore, what I've done is that it's something similar to what you're saying. Is I've and I remember talking to him a while ago. I think when you guys were just turning on Bosso and stuff like that, and we're having a conversation around profiting. You're telling me, man, we are burning. But right now, I'm about to take off the foot off the pedal, so we can do a little bit of profit, and then I'll see what happens from there. And it's fun how you can talk about this thing as if it's like a kind of like a real vehicle. And in my head, I'm like, hey, I get you. Because exactly is what I was looking at. I was almost breaking even until one of my suppliers just messed up some stuff and other things, and I'm back at chasing that position. But that's the model I've taken to say, look, I'm gonna build the first blueprint physical store first of all. Number one. Number two, I'm gonna build the tech to support that physical store, and then support the whole country from the tech, and then see if there's need. So when you ask about the need for financing, right? I'm looking at the fact that when I get financing, the next steps that I do, and for me around that is that I'm splitting the financing. A portion of it can be debt, a portion of it is equity. The equity is what goes into the operational cost, as well as also bringing in, like team members, most especially on the marketing side. Because what I want to do on the marketing side is really make sure that there is somebody collecting stories, because we are building crazy, beautiful stories on the ground. And I feel like not a lot of them are being heard. So I want somebody dedicated primarily just to go and do that. On the flip side, the debt financing is coming in for inventory. Because now I'm asking myself a question. What I'm doing in that physical store, do I replicate it within Zambia and just have a few other mini stores somewhere in good locations, which act like as my fulfillment for faster deliveries and all those things? But at the same time, let me close with this. At the same time, as I go into Zimbabwe, into Tanzania, and places like Angola, I'm asking myself two questions. Because I see one of my best partners is, which is something that I actually looked at what they did. I was talking to Chisepo over this. One of my best partners are hatcheries, guys that are producing day-old chicks and that are producing feed. So they have become a very good model of how I enter into a new space. So I go into Zim, I speak to Ivins, I go into everywhere where roast breeders and all these other players are, because they are in about 8 countries, 7 countries, 6 countries. And I'm saying, hey, where you are, why don't I give you the app? You give it to your farmers. They use it to do their work on the farming business. Then I will follow after with the stores I have here, there. When I see the traction, when I see the transactions on the platform. So that was the model that I'm looking at.
You have to leverage partnerships, and I think what you're talking about is similar to also what you are doing with the large supermarket that you've worked with, trying to use them to get into other markets. So I think I see like that's something you should definitely run with.
But I also just wanted to add quickly that this has been a decision I've had to also make a decision about in terms of thesis, right? And it's a discussion I've had with my investors before to say, we could either build a unicorn or we could build a camel, right? And the way I see it is, I'm trying to build a business that is resilient and will endure for a long time, which is symbolic of a camel, right? Where it would be in a desert, there's no water, there's no what, but it will keep on going, right? And one of the things I've said to them is, look, I may not build that unicorn, but trust that with what we're trying to do, we can build an enduring business in healthcare, right? And that's how come leveraging some of these partnerships is key, and doing that, some of the stuff that he has done, where you build the plumbing for the entire system, right? Key. In healthcare, nobody has done it. I was talking to a global business manager for one of the biggest pharmaceutical wholesalers in Zambia, and they're manufacturer as well. And immediately I told him that, look, we do pharmaceutical logistics. And he said, he's an Indian guy. I have been in the pharmaceutical industry in Africa for 20 years, and I have never heard of a pharmaceutical logistics company.
Mm-hmm.
Same here.
Can I say something? How do you guys leverage your investors? Do you push your investors to close other investors?
So before we get to that, that's a very important. So next few minutes left are for Sal.
Yeah.
We're talking about the most important topics. So first of all, how many here at any particular point have had an investor that they don't like?
You guys
are lucky.
No, in my previous company,
we hug and kiss.
No, the reason why I'm asking that is because, Sal, how important is it for us as founders? Because let me tell you, founders are always, in many cases, in the most desperate positions. Yeah. How important is it for us to do due diligence when it comes to our investors?
Maybe just before Sal comes in, I just want to just point on that part. For us, I feel like it's very important before, like when you are raising funds, to make sure that the person who is investing has got the same interest in the space that you're in. No matter how if the person who is investing has the same interest, for example, like you're both in circular economy, it makes everything much easier that way. But if you are just going in because you just want a paycheck, that's why it becomes very nasty. Yeah, maybe Sal can just pick. I don't know what your viewpoints are.
In doing this a few times, I would say you're not going to like all your investors. That's just not going to happen. They gave you money, and they need money out more than they gave you, and usually like 5x, 10x. Yeah. So that's the name of the game. That's it, right? So your investors are going to think that you are lazy,
working less.
You're working less. You know what I mean? What are you guys doing? That's what they're going to do. So it's a balancing act, right? You really have to, the best way I think we work with our investors is we put them to work. Hey, this is our problem. Let's make it your problem, right? That's it. We need you to close another investor
coming for you
and everything. So it's one of those things, but you're not going to like every investor. And to be honest, here, and I'm coming from outside looking in, they're still at the I'm investing in Zambia and I'm investing in learning. They're not yet investing in us succeeding a lot of times, right? So they've got to be willing to take just the hit, right? And that's what the way they feel. So a lot of times I generally believe that they're like, yeah, this is an investment that I'm going to lose. We have an investor who invested in another great entrepreneur, and he was like, yeah, I wasn't sure, and now I've lost my money anyway, so forget it. Right? Just said it, just outright. And he was like, it wasn't money but hey, I helped the ecosystem, whatever. But he's a really good investor. Another investor is gonna yell at you and scream and be pissed, and it's their money, guys.
Yeah. Do you think it affects? There's always this pressure when it comes to startups to scale. 3 countries, 4 countries, especially when you come to this market where GDP is quite low. Yeah. They don't look at you. Yeah.
We had a conversation with Brad.
Yeah.
So not to tell somebody else's story or anything, but I think they are a great case study on what kind of happened. One of the things that we struggle with here is a lot of the large companies, whether it's telecoms, banks, whatever, they just steal our innovations, which is problematic. in America or in other markets, I would say, especially in America, you'll see a telecom say, hey, they would look at Zona and say, okay, either we acquire them and bring that innovation into our company,
Yes.
or we fund them. We say, hey, we're going to give you $30 million. And now we're going to build another $100 million company.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they sell out, that's fine. We get our part back, right? But what happened with Zona in particular seems to be, from the story I've heard, is that people just copied their model, ran them into the ground because they had more money, right? You had the telecoms who had more money. They just put the booths next to their booths, ran them into the ground. Yeah. And then how much innovation's been done after that?
None.
Right? So you just killed innovators.
That was pretty
the
stupid.
entrepreneur, and you when you could have really supported them and built another company listed on the Zambian Stock Exchange that's doing really well, you could have built a business. But instead, you stole the innovation.
So there's that side of the problem, but what about the their side of the problem? Because like in every problem, there's two people involved. So like the big MNOs did what they did, but then what did Zona do wrong?
Yeah, I mean, this is them, right? They did scale out. They raised so much money that now they were chasing revenue.
Which is what he was saying towards you, that at the place where you are, if you get that kind of money,
you got to chase the revenue.
From a kind of vehicle, which is venture capital, you have to chase that.
And I have to wake up at 2 a.m. like Chisepo there.
Yeah.
No. You're chasing
every day.
So you are thinking you're going to get into 2 countries. They are thinking you're going to be in 10.
And just what I mean by chasing revenue is exactly this, and then I'll be quiet, is last year Bosso did 250,000. This year we have to do 1.2 million. The year after that, we've got to do 3 or 4 million. The year after that, I have to do 10. The year after that, I got to do 29. That's the projection. If I miss those projections, I won't be able to raise any more money.
That's a bad place to be.
That's 5 years. I've got to be making 20. I've got to be turning over, or Bosso. So I would say
that's a great place to be in.
Yeah. But the pressure's on.
The pressure that comes with it is wild.
The pressure is on, and I share the pressure with 4 other founders.
Yeah.
The pressure is wild, and I agree. Like when I see them raising those figures they want to raise, because it only makes sense for them to have enough capital to grow at that rate. Because you're not fucking around there. You have such numbers to hit, and for example, like in my case, I don't think there's someone coming to scold me. Oh man, you didn't do well.
Exactly.
You get, other than myself and maybe my co-founders. But for your case, I understand. If you have all these investors and all these KPIs that you have to hit, you have to keep raising and raising until you hit those numbers. I think I have one last question. Unfortunately, you have to wind up. I think I've asked. Okay. So, piece of advice. What would you advise local founders on how to position themselves for investment?
Mine's real quick. I would tell somebody, raise a team that can do it. Lupia did a really good job. They're they're very gender focused, so they've got a very balanced male-female team. That's one way of raising it. I know Chisepo did it with experience. He got guys, me and Ivan are both 40 plus, right? So he got experienced guys, right? You got to build a team that can raise your money. If you don't, you're going to be doing it by yourself. And doing it by yourself, I mean, me and Chisepo, it's tough.
It is hard. And I think, aside what Sal has said, I would add, you have to put everything in place. It has to be very strategic, very, very calculated, because you don't have time to negotiate with investors. It's not a conversation that you have where you put an offer on the table and then it's back and forth, and then they'll say, no, not this, put this in order, come back. No. Most of the time, they'll just say, give us all these things, you give them, and the next thing you're either getting a yes or a no. So you don't have time for back and forth. You have to plan it very well. So I remember when we started the friends and family round, we made some very few mistakes. In fact, maybe a lot of mistakes. And I remember that night after one of our calls with the guys from the US, Sal calls me on the side, and it's like 7 p.m. It's like, you know what, Chisepo? We've done so many calls and it looks like we're doing something wrong. There's no way everyone will be giving us the same answer. So we need to re-strategize this. And we got onto it, re-strategized. And this time around, we went back very organized. I send out that time I used to send out a monthly report. This time I send out a quarterly report without fail. I'm always in touch with the investors. We have systems in place. Everything is very structured. I can't sort of think of everything. I have a CRM for my investors. I have a CRM for my customers. Everything. If I'm asked to pull out something, I have it all in place. But all those, I have a data room, and the data room is very structured. Strategy, finance, investment, legal, everything. So I had to put all that stuff in place, even before Sal came, even before Ibin came. By the time they were coming, they found a lot of those things in place.
Yeah. All right. So this has been the last episode of the season. Thank you very much, guys, for coming through.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate you.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we got 30 seconds to close.
Awesome.
This has been sponsored by Afri Delivery, yours truly, Afri Online. And my friends here will add as much info as we can through the links or through the videos. And thank you very much for coming, guys.
Thank
you, man.
Great
So
first
next
season.
season,
man.
next season will
Great
be
first
different. It will be different location, different set, different setup too. Not just conversations, but actually practical lessons on how to build a business. So I'll be visiting some of your businesses and seeing what you guys are doing, and then hopefully now we can start having bigger conversations out of Zambia. So I think this season we focus more on the good, the bad, the ugly, based on the founders and the startups. So I think we're gonna go to a higher level now. All right.
Good job.
Cheers.
Thank you.
One time like this, make it pop like this. Knock like this, make it drop. One time like this, make it pop like this.